Hey, good evening. Welcome to the March 3 regular city council meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Miller.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll.
Beauchamp. Here. Goodlow. Here. Lowquist. Here. Elliott.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Okay, proclamations are on page 17, 18, and 19. They are signed. It's the Irish American Heritage Month. It is the National Women's History Month and International Women's Day, and Natural Gas Utility Workers Day. We have no awards or recognition. Move on to approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the agenda.
Seconded.
Motion second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And we have consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. This starts on page 20 to 80 in your packet. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 6A, there will be an opportunity for public comment. This is an environmental commission appointment consideration, page 81 in the packet.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you, you have a recommendation from a subcommittee of the Environmental Commission to appoint Cameron Herman to the vacant position on the Environmental Commission. And I don't see Cameron in the audience unless I missed him or online. So
Okay, any comments from the public on the Environmental Commission? Appointment. Okay, council.
Just I'll move approval of Cameron Herman for the Environmental Commission.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve Cameron Herman as an appointee to the Environmental Commission. Is there any discussion?
I sat on the interview committee as the liaison to the city, from the Environmental Commission to the City Council. And we just looking forward to working with Cameron in the future.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Miss-
Public comment.
He asked.
I did ask. Did anybody want public comment? Nope, nobody online either. Thank you. All right. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 6B, page 85. This is the EDA annual report. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
I would like to actually introduce this real quick. We invite some of our community partners on a regular basis to provide an update to you. We do have an agreement with the Ellensburg Downtown Association to do programming for our downtown businesses on behalf of economic development. They annually receive about $60,000 per year as their base agreement to perform their services. And so you have Teresa Chanis. She's the director for the Ellensburg Downtown Association tonight, providing an update for you.
Hi, you guys. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Teresa with the Ellensburg Downtown Association, and I'm here to present to you guys a little bit about what we did in 2024. So for those of you that don't know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization and a nationally accredited Main Street program. And we support our downtown businesses through a proven 4-point approach. And we are a small team of 3, small and mighty team of 3, I say, because most of the work that we do is done through volunteerism. So we had over 2,000 hours of volunteerism last year, and that contributed to helping us get the work done that we do in the community. So as I said, we are part of a nationally accredited Main Street program, and within that is a 4-point approach. So there's economic vitality that helps to basically support the economic ecosystem of our downtown. And then our design committee, which keeps our public spaces looking nice and pretty and fostering basically public spaces that are welcoming for everyone. And then they call it organization and we in Washington call it outreach, but this committee is responsible for helping us create partnerships with either securing more volunteers or connecting us with people for fundraising and other organizations within the community. And then last but definitely not least is our promotions committee, who is really responsible for just shouting from the rooftops all of the great things happening in downtown Ellensburg. So a lot of people ask, what does the EDA do for me? And really, I just like to say, like, we're an organization that is here to make Ellensburg, like, businesses thrive in downtown and make it a community where people enjoy live, working, and playing. So we have a fun job. As I said, we are a nonprofit organization. We are governed by a board of directors. We currently have 10 people on our board, and we are looking for 2. So if you know of anyone. And we find it really important to have good strategic partners within our organization. So here's a list of a lot of the partners that we work with in the community, but it's really important for us because we want to make sure that the work we're doing is aligning with what the community needs, not overlapping with what anyone's doing, and also gives us a chance to find areas of partnership and collaboration, which is really important. So some of the most notable ones are, I've been sitting on the Kittitas County Economic Development Task Force, and it's really just shed light on what needs to be done at the county level for our community and making sure that the work that we're doing is able to align with some of the points that they're working on. Additionally, is working with Central Washington University. Really big initiative is trying to get students off campus and into our downtown to help boost our businesses and basically spend their money in downtown and come down and see what we have to offer. And then also working closely with the chamber just to make sure we're not duplicating any efforts and working in collaboration where we can. A little bit about our funding. So as you'll see from the chart here, a big part of our fundraising is from our Main Street Tax Credit Incentive Program, or as I call it, our B&O program. And this is where legislators from Washington State have decided that they believe so much in the Main Street program that they allotted $5 million to go back into all of the downtown that can be pledged back into downtown associations across Washington State, and there's 38 of us. So we as Ellensburg have the opportunity to get $333,000 for our downtown, but from businesses choosing to pledge their B&O tax line back to a downtown association. So it's a slow and steady process. Trying to get people to talk about taxes isn't always the most exciting thing, but we've made some progress. In 2023, we had 23 businesses participate, and last year we had 36 businesses participate. So 18 new contributors last year. Additionally, we are funded, as Heidi said, through our city contract with you guys. Thank you very much. And sponsorship is another big part of our funding. We brought in over $35,000 in event sponsorship last year. And we're just continuing to amplify our events. So we hope to see that number grow. And in 2024, we had 58 companies donate to the EDA through either the Main Street Tax Credit Program or event sponsorship. So a little bit about the impact of your investment into the EDA. The biggest part is about $25,000 of that, the funds that you give us goes into community events. So we put on 11 community-facing events where we're encouraging people to come into the downtown, enjoy downtown together. So just really a way to get people to have that sense of place and community within our downtown. And then another big part of our funding goes to our holiday decor. So the installation and takedown of our iconic snowflakes that just came down and our holiday Christmas tree. It's pretty expensive to take them up and down. So that's one of our big things that our funding goes towards. And just some things on the horizon, major expenses that we see coming down the road is, as I'm sure you've noticed, our trash cans are deteriorating, flaking, and they really just aren't holding up to our weather here in Ellensburg. There's days where we see trash just flying down the roads and we're out there frantically trying to get it, but the wind, they're just not really cut out for the wind. So we have 48 trash cans total in downtown. And I've spoken with Heidi and the city about just ways that we can hopefully partner in the future and find grants and other funding sources to either replace or refurbish the trash cans. And then additionally with that is our planters, which were all installed around the same time. They are giving out on the bottom. So we have 66 of those. And this year we had one fall out in front of Ellensburg Pet Center and there was dirt all over and it cost us $1,200 just to replace that one. So we're looking at over $80,000 to, sorry, not replace, to repair that one. So just things that we know that are on the horizon that we're trying to figure out how we can fund them, because they are like a big part of keeping our downtown clean, but also beautiful with the flowers that go in every year. Okay, so a little bit about the work that we've done. Our design committee in 2024 officially finished the Ellensburg postcard mural. We had some work to do after the ribbon cutting of it, and we finally got it coated so that it's up to par with the weather, and it should last for years and years to come with the coating that they put on it. They also helped us launch our second annual holiday ornament, which has really just been a great program to promote community pride. People are really excited about it continuing so that they can continue to collect them and show that community pride around the holidays. They also helped me with the coordination of getting the snowflakes installed and the tree up in Unity Park. And then they organize our spring cleanup days and fall cleanup days and also help get all of the planters planted in the spring. Our Economic Vitality Committee. So this committee awarded $12,000 in micro grants last year to some of our downtown businesses. And over the course of 4 years, they've contributed almost $40,000 right back into downtown businesses in Ellensburg. And it's just a really great program and a really fun day to get to go out and just give some of our local businesses a big check and let them do some project that they maybe couldn't have done without a little extra funding. And then they also hosted a vacant storefront tour with over 70 attendees in this last spring. And that resulted in 2 of our spaces in downtown Ellensburg being rented. And it was such a success that we've had communities from all over the state reaching out to see how they can replicate it in their community. We had people walking around with real estate agents and some of our city partners with code enforcement to answer questions and just give people the opportunity to really get into these buildings that are open and see what opportunities there might be in there. We put together vision boards on ideas that we thought would be successful in some of these places. So we hope to do it again, but also kind of don't, because we don't want vacant storefronts. So we have to have those in order to do it. But it was a really great event. And then they are responsible for our holiday and summer night market. And then our promotions committee, they are responsible for helping us put on a lot of the events that we do, but most notably in 2024, they launched the first annual CWU Student Night Out. And we brought over 300 CWU students into downtown that night. And it was great because it's one of our big initiatives is how to get kids off campus. And it was a really great evening to have them say, oh, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know this shop was here. This restaurant was here. So it was really successful. We had a great partnership with CWU on signage, transportation, promoting the event. And one of the big highlights was the new sweet spot inside of the Fitterers building. They sold over 400 specialty sodas in that one evening, which is more than their downtown Chelan location sold all year last year. So it was a very successful event. And then last but definitely not least is our outreach committee. Again, like I said, our volunteers are the heart and soul of our organization. And we had 2,100 hours donated last year of time. And this committee is really responsible for not only helping us get new volunteers, but helping us retain our volunteers. So volunteer appreciation events, and then going out into the community and talking to students and at volunteer fairs to get people to come and hang out with us and do some of the fun work in downtown. And then they also get to help us honor at the end of the year at our annual meeting and awards, honor some of our downtown businesses and volunteers. So that's 2024. What we have on the horizon for 2025, we're hoping to relight downtown Ellensburg. It's going to be slow and steady, but we are going to start with the blocks that we have building owner sign-offs on so that we can get access to their electrical panels and their rooftops. But we are hoping to bring back the lights in downtown. I think they were put up about 10 years ago, maybe 12, and they some of them are falling down, some of them are out. They're just not looking great. So we're excited to start relighting downtown. We're also very excited. We are going to be finally restoring the historic Ross the Hub mural on the side of the Kleinberg mural. For those of you not familiar with that building, it's on the corner of Pearl and Third. If you were standing in Club 301 patio and looked up, it's that big mural. It's basically unrecognizable at this point. You can hardly make out the image. So we're excited to get it restored as it's like such a big entrance to our downtown right there. So that will be starting in the spring. And then we, through some research, found out that we have a pretty big reach through our social media and our website. So we're just trying to enhance some of our programming to draw tourism and visitors into downtown to hopefully amplify our downtown economy. So with that, for the first time in 3 years, we went for lodging tax dollars this year and got them. And we're just really excited to see what we can do with those funds to hopefully bring people into our downtown. We have over 20% of our website traffic on the EDA's website comes from outside of Ellensburg and primarily Seattle. So we know that people are looking at us and trying to see what there is to do in Ellensburg. And we have a really great open rate with our newsletter of almost 60%. So really high engagement. So we're just trying to see how we can amplify that and continue to grow it and hopefully bring more people to downtown Ellensburg to boost the economy. And last but not least, in 2025, we have Main Street America coming to Ellensburg at the end of the month, and we are going through a transformation strategy. So what that is basically they come in and they look at our survey results, which I'm sure you've seen circling around, and I ask that you share it with as many people as you can. But basically this is a way for us to see what our community wants and needs from our downtown. So talking to our residents, talking to our building owners, our business owners, just to see what they would like to see Ellensburg be over the next 5 years and to make sure that the work we're doing is really aligning with what the community wants. So the survey will be open through March 18th and all the feedback is greatly appreciated. And then just to show you guys our 2025 event calendar, like I said, 11 of these events are public facing, but the rest of them are focusing on volunteerism, like our cleanup days, or providing resources for our downtown businesses with our merchant gatherings. And then just ways that you can get involved is fill out our survey, like I said, volunteer, join a committee, engage with us on social media, and then most importantly is just continue to shop local and support our downtown businesses. That's all I have for you. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Council, any questions?
Got a quick question. Thank you. Great presentation. I was going to say, well done on the Snowflake project.
Oh, thank you.
That's been something we've watched last few years, and it's sort of been moving along. And sometimes the snowflakes were up until June or July, but I think we got a handle on it
Yeah.
now. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But I was going to ask I was looking at your calendar of events and some of the night out events, and like last year, I think if I remember, Pine Street might have been closed between 3rd and 4th, for example, or something.
Yeah, for the summer night market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I was just curious if any of these events are focusing on Unity Park as a venue specifically, or we?
Yes. So let's see here. Our night market, we're not, I think that will stay on Pine Street because it's part of our Pine Street revitalization project. So we're trying to get people to like come on to Pine Street a little bit more.
Sure.
But our Buskers in the Berg, Hoedown, Trick or Treat Harvest Fest, our tree lighting, of course, those will all be in Unity Park. And we did some of them in there last year, but the park was like half open. So we're excited to have full use of the park for 2025.
That's great. I was going to, one other thing I'll put a plug in, because I don't know the date, obviously, but at some point this summer, it's likely that we'll have an opportunity to unveil the new public art piece in Unity Park, and it'd be great to see a Kelly's all over that. So, okay, I'll stop there.
August 1st.
Oh,
Okay.
August. Okay. Okay, great. So, thank you.
Yep, we'll be there.
Questions?
Teresa, for anybody that is interested in donating to EDA for some of those small projects like the planner projects and those kinds of things, or maybe even offering their services if they are artfully inclined, can they reach out to you or who should they reach out to?
They can go on our website and reach directly out to me or our Director of Community Engagement, Katie Holm, and she can help set you guys up with volunteering or other projects.
Well, I guess a follow-up on that. Are you planning to replace the existing or reimagine and purchase something different for the garbage cans and the planters?
I think that's a conversation that we're having with the city or with Heidi to kind of try to see what our best approach is. It's
Yeah.
pretty costly, so we want to
I
make
think
sure.
either way, pretty costly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have costs on how much it is to refurbish them. So now I think it's time to look at what it would be to get new ones. The unfortunate part is they have such historic charm, and that's what adds to our charm of our downtown. So trying to figure out how to weigh the options and what we should do.
Yeah. I'd hate to see those plastic ones that
I
some
know.
communities have, but I get it. That
Yeah, and they're
Metal's
yeah.
pretty-
So we'd have to remove them all, and like I said, it'd be about $80,000 to repair them all. So
Thanks.
Your mural project, is that the start of many?
what we would love to see is either a new mural or a restoration every year, like alternating. It's just a matter of funding and if we can do that. So this Ross the Hub mural, it's about $40,000 for us to do it. So it's taken us a few years to get the funding for it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Questions?
Excellent.
Comments from the audience? You have to go to the microphone, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Carrie Vickers, and my question is, I'm not sure who is in charge of putting on Nights in Bethlehem, but that was in Unity Park, wasn't it, with Santa Claus? And I was just curious because I didn't see it up there. I'm just curious who puts that on.
So it's part of the Moments to Remember tree lighting.
Okay.
And a church, sorry, I don't know if I need to talk into this. A church does the Streets of Bethlehem part that we just
Okay.
partner and promote it. So,
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other audience comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6C, page 94. This is the Ellensburg Police Department's annual report. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
If you have some help, please.
Make it.
Well, good evening, Council. Ken Wade, Chief of the Ellensburg Police Department. I'm here this evening to present the 2024 annual report. And it's important to point out that this is specific to within the jurisdiction of the City of Ellensburg Police Department, which would be within the confines of the City of Ellensburg. So we'll start this out and hopefully everything will work smoothly for me. Okay, in review, this report will highlight the department's key achievements, our initiatives and challenges over the past year. You will also see, you will notice this year's report is in a different format than what I've provided in the past. The You will also notice that in this report, we hope to provide council a little deeper understanding of the challenges we face and the programs that we were developing. There have been several challenges or changes in 2024 with our personnel, and we'll highlight that. You see here in review, educating our community, employee alignment with retirement, and promotions and new hiring. We're hoping, or we hoped to provide better education to our community and aligning our efforts better with what the community's needs are and what we're learning through our evidence-based policing model. The separations and hires, as we all remember, about a year ago, Captain Dan Hansberry retired after 30 years of service. We hired John Heinmarch. We stole him from Redmond Police Department. Outstanding officer, comes with a lot of talent. He is a seasoned officer with them, so we're very fortunate to have him. He had some program specialty. He was a drone coordinator for Redmond Police Department. If you're going to be a drone coordinator, let's pick Microsoft's home territory. So we had a code enforcement officer, Teresa Jones, left the department. Her husband was a Seattle police detective sergeant who retired, and the Teresa retired at that point too. They began traveling around the country. We had Officer Derek Holmes transferred out of the proactive anti-crimes and back to patrol. Sergeant Tim Weed was transferred to detectives. Taylor Malmstrom was transferred to detectives. I need to apologize to Jason Ramsey for not moving his name up higher enough, but he also transferred to the detectives. We had promotions. Cameron Clayson was selected to be the administrative captain. Cliff Callier promoted to sergeant. Ryan Potter was first promoted to corporal and then to sergeant when the opening came available, and Christian Aviar was also promoted to the corporal's position. As you can tell by the photographs, we had our whole department photographed again in January. It's the first time we've had it in about 9 years. Awards, we gave 3 awards this year. Department-wide, first was Officer Stephanie Drunkaitis. She received the Officer of the Year award for recognition for her commitment to her professional development and to the service to the department. Of course, Sergeant Josh Bender received the Chief's Award for his contribution to the community events. He is the planner of all of those social events that we put on in the community, and he does an outstanding job. As an administrative sergeant, he's also key to keeping all of our vehicles moving forward, all of our technology. He's the go-to person. He also oversees code enforcement and animal control and the school resource officer. So he's very busy. And then the last one is Cammie Dixon Ricard. She received the Chief's Award. She's instrumental in our child safety restraint program. We started about 3 years ago. She is the one that has been instrumental in getting the officers trained and then putting on the car seats, working with traffic safety and other partners on improving the child safety restraint program. We get referrals directly from the local hospitals and from the health department and others when people need to have make sure that their child safety restraints are inappropriately. It's Cammie and 2 others of my staff that have also been trained in it. Accreditation, 2024 was our full accreditation year. We've been accredited since 2000. But in a full accreditation year, what that means is that not only do they go over every chapter and all of the different proofs, but they do an on-site and they also interview employees. And again, this year, this is the 3rd consecutive full evaluation cycle that we had no negative findings. Department overview, patrol division is 1,618 incident reports, which is a decrease of 5%. 684 collisions, 3,100 traffic stops, and we had 2 vacancies throughout the year. Next year, I'll be reporting that we only have 1 vacancy. We had a new hire to start with today. Their detectives division, we're fully staffed with 5 detectives and a sergeant. They handled 232 cases, which included 9 employee background investigations. And also to note, they investigated the homicide that occurred, and we recently had a conviction on. School Resource Officer, or SRO. Our SRO closely works with the Ellensburg School District. That is on a 3-year rotation. It is coming up, and we just advertised for any interested officers to see who would have an interest carrying it forward. But it's a very close relationship between working with the school and working with the kids by providing a safe learning environment there. Our records division, 1,384 public disclosure requests, an additional 183 court orders, 471 warrants entered, and they touch every report that the officers generate. And in so they make sure that our coding is correct, that the data is being properly added into it. Code enforcement, 2,978 parking violations, 252 weed violations, 14 snow and ice. But what is important about the code enforcement was I had mentioned that Teresa Jones had retired. So this was all done basically by one employee. And Addison stepped up and she did a great job, and I greatly appreciate the work that she put into keeping our code enforcement moving forward. Animal control, the trend continues. We had 32 dog bites, 4 animal cruelty investigations, 662 animal complaints that were handled. And not all of those are handled by our animal control officer. She handles complaints during regular business hours. Patrol officers are pulled away from their duties to handle the bite complaints and the dog violations, after hours and on weekends. And we continued our partnership with Yakima Humane Society. The crime and intelligence analyst, this is the newest component of the department, focusing on our mission to reduce crime and improve quality of life in Ellensburg. As Dr. Carr had mentioned earlier, we're working to develop programs, analyze the problems when we're using evidence-based policing model. It's given us the ability to do a little more research, find out what's out there that's currently being used, and then how that would work into our community. Some of the programs that we've currently stood up is, of course, the Handle with Care, which we discussed during the study session, the graffiti abatement, gang intel. She's handling our yearly community survey, the CHASE program, which will roll out to council at a later date, the high density residential program, and I'll touch on all these later on in the presentation, our strategic messaging program, internships, data collection and reporting. So Dr. Carr's taken on an awful lot of that, but I still have yet to be able to overwhelm her, but I'm trying. Mental health continues to be a challenge, not only in our community, but statewide. But in 2015, I went back 10 years, and since 2015 was our highest or was our lowest as far as mental health referrals. We had 171. And during calendar year 2024, that number has increased to almost 500, 191% increase over 10 years, and it's continuing to grow. But there is good news. In 2018, at the last 10 years, 2018 was the highest number for suicidal calls. But during 2024, we were down to just 96 calls, which is a 35% decrease. Calls involving suicide attempts. And a suicide attempt is when the officers get on scene and see some substantial step has been taken towards committing a suicide. Officers, that has decreased dramatically. In 2024, we only had 14 of those calls, which is a 70-cent per reduction compared to 2015, which is very, very significant. And unfortunately, though, we average about 1 suicide death a year here in Ellensburg. Substance abuse. This is one of the things that we're most proud about. In 2024, we did not have a single reported controlled substance homicide or overdose death, which has been virtually unheard of around here. Not a single one. And in 2023, you might recall, we had the record number. We had 9 overdose deaths. So in 1 year's time, we were able to reduce that. And it's a whole collection of programs and stuff that I attribute to that. We've had a 48% increase in our drug enforcement, with some of the back and forth with the state legislature on the controlled substance, on the drug laws. We finally got to a point where we are still focusing on, we can take some more enforcement, plus we're also, able to better address some of the larger dealers in our community. And if you've been watching the Daily Record lately, you've been seeing how, they're pleading not guilty to selling 3 and 4 different times to our undercover officers or to informants. Officers responded to 16 non-fatal drug overdoses, with the youngest one being 17 months old. She was found in her residence. Her mother had provided Narcan, which is probably what saved the juvenile's life or the youth's life. She's transported by helicopter to Harborview, and it looks like she's going to make a full recovery. During 2024, officers administered Narcan 6 times, which is lower than what we've done in the past. And Narcan it helps reverse opioid overdoses. We also joined the Washington State Department of Health's Leave Behind program in October. And since then, we've provided 8 boxes of Narcan to individuals we've come in contact with that are likely to experience an overdose or be around somebody with an overdose. And the Ellensburg drug environment is changing quite rapidly. Like you'll see in my written report that I provided to council, there's a lot of things going on in not only in our drug world, but in the drug world across the state and the nation. Fentanyl has been kind of the leading poison that's been killing thousands of people. And I believe in 2023, it was over 100,000 individuals that died of controlled substance overdose. What we're seeing here locally is, when we first started seeing fentanyl here, it was coming in pill form. And so it was being pressed in other areas, some of them within the state. We have information of a pill press that was operating within Kittitas County. It also, the pills were coming out across the southern border and also being smuggled down from Canada. It was primarily being handled by drug trafficking organizations. And what we're now seeing is fewer and fewer pills. We're seeing powder. And initially that raised a grave concern for us because pure powdered fentanyl is highly toxic, and a small amount would kill a large number of people. But what we're finding is that the stuff is stepped on or mixed with another substance. And so we had a drug screen that was done on a case that we were working on. When we sent it to the state crime lab, they came back and said that there was no fentanyl. Now, the person that we were buying the drugs from thought it was fentanyl, but what we learned through the state was it is a chemical that's being used, a powdered chemical. It's being used for the painting of products, and it is a antioxidant. And so you have people that are ingesting a chemical that has no drug in it. So although we don't know what the short-term effects of that's going to be, or we do know that they're not overdosing on it, but what is going to happen here further down the road, we just don't have enough information on that. We also have a blind spot in the fact that it's really been a challenge trying to get our hands around what's going on in the university setting. We are seeing increases across the state and other drugs that are not showing up here in Ellensburg. Cocaine has been a pretty significant increase coming up out of Mexico. People out of Yakima recently been arrested with multiple kilos, but we're not finding it here, which we're trying to work with Yakima to see if where we're missing it, because I'm sure that it's probably somewhere in the community. We don't likely see overdoses from cocaine. And as far as methamphetamine, nothing's changed. Meth is meth. It's still destroying lives. It still costs about the same. It's still being produced in primarily in Mexico and smuggled up into the United States from a variety of methods. We're seeing the large shards, which tell us that it's fairly high potency methamphetamine, but But again, this has been consistent for last 5, 6, 7 years. Back when I was a drug task force supervisor, the shards looked just about the same as they did 14 years ago. Juvenile crime, again, we're seeing an increase in it. And one of the things that we noticed in 2023 was we had a 100% increase over 2022. But 2022 had more violence associated with our juvenile crime. In 2024, as a ratio, it was less violence. And then, of course, last year, with the homicide, with the drive-by shooting, and with several other violent encounters. But overall, we had fewer juvenile arrests. And again, we're trying to work on solutions to prevent juvenile crime and those individuals that are basically using them for the advancement of their own criminal activity. When you see numbers talking about our runaways, when we started digging into that, we saw a significant increase in runaways. And what we learned through looking at all of the data on it was primarily 2 kids. One of them has ran away about 18 times and is returned home to mom. And another one was right around 14 times. So when you see the high numbers, it may not accurately reflect the actual individuals, but it's clearly youth that are having some challenges with gang activity, as reported in the local media. Back on March 15th, 2024, as I was driving to Seaside, Oregon, my son called me and asked me what was going on in Ellensburg. My response was, well, how do I know? I'm in Oregon. And then I saw where we had the shooting. So I spent the next 3 days on the phone with Captain Weed as he managed the investigation, and they did an outstanding job in that. A lot goes into these types of investigations that we can't come out publicly and talk about at the time. We've taken a lot of criticism through social media and through others. Why didn't we give the youth's picture out? Well, the law says we can't. Well, we should be able to bend the laws for this. And now police departments don't bend the laws. But the officers did great work. We had information that he had fled the area, and we reached out with the United States Marshals Service and their Violent Crimes Task Force based out of Yakima. And we've used them on other cases too. But they spent the next 4 months working with our detectives and trying to find our suspect as he traveled all over, primarily the King County area. He was located in the city of Kent. He was attempting to commit another robbery at the time when he was assaulted, and the police officers on scene recognized it was an individual we were looking for and notified us. So he was just recently convicted, and the sentencing, I believe, is in a couple of weeks. Far as gang activity, we're identifying those individuals involved in gangs. We're developing criminal intelligence, and so we have a better understanding of the current environment. We're tracking the gang's impacts. Everybody probably saw the huge increase in law enforcement over the rodeo up at the fairgrounds. We had information that had come to us that led us to believe that there was a possibility of some retaliation from the shooting. So we had roughly 40 police officers, thanks to our partners at the Sheriff's Department, Central Washington University. We had all of our officers out. We had State Patrol out. And so it was a nice, peaceful, quiet rodeo, just how we encourage all of them to be. So, but again, those are things that we're working closely with other intel analysts and gang units throughout the state of Washington, so that we can kind of keep track on that. We attend gang meetings in Yakima and the Tri-Cities and in Grant County, so that we're staying on top of what their trends are seeing. And we're finding that, there is some cross-border, cross-county lines, but I don't want a misimpression that these gang members are our gang members. They're not coming up from Yakima. The ones that we're dealing with here have attended elementary school here in Ellensburg. have grown up here. Their families have been here a long time. So anybody that's out there saying, well, it's not, Ellensburg doesn't have a gang problem, it's Yakima, well, they're mistaken. That's not the case. Crime reduction programs, again, the community survey. We've talked about that earlier. We just completed our 2025 survey, and we'll have some information available to council in the coming months. Again, our Handle with Care program that we discussed earlier, program to improve child success in partnerships, the graffiti abatement. The last couple of councils or the annual reports heard me talk about the high density residential project, and that was kind of the working with an apartment complex to see how we could drive down their need for police services. What we did was we partnered this past year with a local large scale apartment complex and had all of the, we passed out the survey to all of them. We received about 60 surveys back to kind of gauge what they felt was a problem in their living environment. And oftentimes what we see in those types of settings are you have people that are not used to living so close to other people. And so there's a frustration when, somebody's walking too loud upstairs or their garden is touching my garden type of stuff. So we were able to work with the management company and to find ways of reducing the tension that was going on. And what we've found is we've dropped our overall calls that are about 75%. And for a while, they were running probably in our top 10 as a location for calls for service. And very, very few of those were actual crimes. Community education videos. Those of you that have had the opportunity, if you haven't, I'd encourage you to look at our social media page. And what we learned during the last survey that we provided was that the community wanted more information. Well, social media in a posting is not the best way of providing that. Now, I did not come up with that because I'm as illiterate in social media as there is. But what we've learned was that they want more information. So we provided one of our patrol officers who had a passion for videos, and he made a series of them. The first one being the crosswalk or the jaywalking video, where he used his brother Jay as the actor in it. We've also done, the mental health system, the 3 parts system on that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to explain what we're seeing in the community and how the community can respond to it. Our community health and safety experience, or CHASE program. This is a program that we're using we just created. We'll start with our first class in, I believe April is where the university is going to have some of their students. What we've done is we've created a program, not like a reserve program, which requires hundreds of hours and a full background, and more than what we saw with our community or Citizens Academy, which is just a few hours. This program is set up to help people that have an interest in the law enforcement profession, and it's not specifically police officer. It may be code enforcement officers, it may be criminal analysts, it may be front office staff, and it will give them the opportunity to get we just want to make sure they don't have any outstanding felony warrants and then they can participate in there. But they will not have any enforcement capability, and they're not going to be used as any member of the department. This is entirely an educational piece. But working with the university, they thought it would be beneficial to their law and justice program to be able to offer this as a work studies. And so we're working closely with Dr. Stoddard, who was here earlier, and others at the university to give them that opportunity. I've capped it at 5 central students this year, but it's going to be open to the public, to our local boys and men and women here in our community that want to get into law enforcement but aren't going through the university. We will be advertising this in the community, and we hope to get 4 or 5 of the community members too. I don't want to take too big of a bite because I don't know how much work we're going to have to put into it, but we hope it's something that we can expand into the future. Community Impact Notification Program. This has been surprisingly very helpful for the department. When I look at crime data daily, but monthly I try to analyze it. And beginning last year in August, we started to recognize a trend in basically false alarms. So we started watching it a little more closely to see what was going on, and came down to about the top 10 businesses in our community that had false alarms. One of them had 38 false alarms. Another one had 22. So what I did was I sent them a letter, drafted a friendly letter offering to assist them in their improvements. We offered some suggestions on training and stuff for their staff, and then also the opportunity if they would like to meet with me or meet with one of my officers, we would be happy to work with them on it. We sent the letter out, and within probably 2 weeks, we saw a dramatic decrease. And so when we were experiencing 7 to 15 false alarms a week, it dropped down to about 3. By the end of 2024, only one of the original 10 was still having a problem, and they received a second letter from me, which I want to think was still cordial and inviting. But the next letter is what we will inform them is that unless there's some other evidence to support that an actual crime is occurring, it's not going to be a priority response. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help the community with that, with solving their own problems. You don't need the cops to show up at all these things. We're recently using it too with another apartment complex that we're seeing a huge increase in the services that patrol officers are providing. So I drafted a letter and highlighted what those calls were and sent them this letter again, offering our support, offering to have one of my officers that's trained in community policing work with them to reduce some of these numbers. My patrol staff is focused on handling the crimes and the calls for service that are out there. And then myself and the criminal analyst and my captains are working on trying to come up with solutions to reduce the overall call volume, to get it down, because the police officers don't need to go to handle a person's garden, touching somebody else's garden. There's things that we need to be handling. Community engagement, our National Night Out, always a big hit. I would encourage all of you and the audience to attend if they haven't. Its focus and has been since its inception was on child safety. We have all of our partner law enforcement agencies, emergency services, local vendors. We always have a good turnout, anywhere from 500 to 700 people will turn out. The city manager and the city attorney make hamburgers and hot dogs. We're going to have to encourage the city attorney to come back and fulfill his obligation again this next August. We have the Cop on Top. Cop on Top is a partnership that we work with Fred Myers and other emergency service agencies. The cops get on top because the fire department brings the fire truck with the great big ladder. So the sheriff's department's there, Central Washington University, and we partner with Special Olympics. The athletes are there. They're very engaged, very excited about the experience. Our Shop with the Cop and Firefighter, again, this is probably our biggest lift that we have, but we're fortunate. This isn't an Ellensburg Police Department one like the other two are. This is more of a partnership with police and fire and EMS throughout the entire county. So you have fire departments from Easton and Cle Elum, Kittitas, everybody. The schools provide us the students that they feel would best benefit from this program. And this is something that's been long running. I mean, this was when I was a brand new trooper back here 30 years ago. There was this much smaller version of this, but it's really taken off in the last couple of years. We're through a partnership with Bi-Mart and the schools. The fire department prepares a breakfast for them. And then they shop with their their law enforcement firefighter, shopper. Then when they bring them back, one of the new additions we had 2 years ago was school teachers and counselors were there to gift wrap all of the presents for them. But they were allowed to keep whatever gift they purchased for themselves. And then this year we were able to also add a more of a portrait picture to where the child we had a staged sitting area with Santa Claus. The kids were able to come and sit on Santa's lap. Their shopper was there. If their parent was there, we invite the parent in so that they would get a nice photograph for it. We also shout out to Rory Savage and Windermere Realty. For the last 2 years, he's provided a box Christmas lunch to every single family that's participated. 2 years ago, we had every kid that didn't have a bike, with the exception of 6 of them, were able to get a bike. We partnered with an individual with the fire department, and we purchased the remaining 6 kids that didn't get drawn and bought them all bikes. This past year, we were fortunate enough through the donations from the community that we were able to provide every child that doesn't have a bike with a bicycle and with a fitted helmet. Other programs, our reserve program. We started 24 with 8 reserves. We ended it with 5. They provide a very valuable but limited benefit to our community from the standpoint that we're very fortunate. I think everybody that's one of my reserves has a master's degree, but they all work at the schools, and so they help provide school security, and along with my school resource officer. We paused the reserve program this year. Last couple of years when we've been doing it, we haven't had a lot of attendance, and it's quite the lift. And the sheriff's department is running theirs this year, and I think I need to apologize to Chris and to the sheriff, because without our participation, they're having to shoulder the full weight of it. But it's something that we're going to look at again next year. But until we're able to get more quality, I shouldn't say quality, more people interested in the program, it just didn't pencil out for us this year. Drone program, this is new. You funded it for us in 2023. We implemented it in 2024. It's not as simple as just buying drones and going out and flying them. There's a training, there's a licensing, and then there's the development of them. This past year, they flew 22 missions, assisted in 6 apprehensions. They supported security at the 2 parades, the graffiti project. They assisted KVFR with a brush fire at the West Interchange. We've used them as 6 criminal investigations, and then they've flown air support for patrol on 12 different times. The ALPR, again, this was started in November with funding from council. We're still getting off the ground on it. We have all of the cameras are installed. We are receiving notices of stolen vehicles or stolen license plates that are in the community. So that system, we look forward to seeing how it grows into the future here. Wouldn't be complete without providing the admin investigations. In 2024, we had 5 job performance complaints. We had 2 of those 5 complaints were 0 reports of bias policing. The 2 founded complaints were both internally generated, meaning myself or another officer had information that a policy may have been violated. And so we went through with the investigation, and appropriate training and discipline has been offered. Administrative reporting, 2024, our response to resistance report. Everybody in the world wants a copy of this. We report to the FBI, we report to the Attorney General, we report to whoever wants it. But you'll see that this past year in 2024, we had 8, which is a significant increase over the past 3 years. And you might recall we had an individual that decided to drive down to 5th and Main Street, sit in her vehicle with a gun. We've had another gentleman who decided that when officers were contacting him, it was a good time to reach underneath the seat and pull out his gun and try to load it. And so we saw more firearms related incidents, but again, it was not, that would be an inappropriate way of saying it, but they're not people that are aggressively attacking the officers. In these instances, it's primarily been mental health issues or the Fifth and Main Street was a incident that started in the Upper County and of course ended in Ellensburg. Acknowledgements for the success of 24 wouldn't have been possible without the dedicated officers that I have. And with the support and leadership that we received from the city and from city manager and assistant city manager, we're building a stronger, safer community. I also like to acknowledge the victims of crimes in our community and their families. We recognize the loss of security and other challenges that they have to face to move forward with their lives. Do you have any questions for me?
Chief Wade, thank you as always for the information, and thank you to you and all of your employees for the wonderful job that they do in our community. And we do owe you a debt of gratitude for the safety that you provide for our community. Going back to your kind of comical comment as far as frivolous calls, are there a couple of frivolous items that you want to kind of publicly say out there? Please don't call about these kinds of things to kind of limit the amount of unnecessary calls that are coming to you and kind of help it out with focusing on the things that are really pertinent in our community.
Well, things that take a lot of resources and there's really quite often it's not a law violation or welfare checks. And it's hard to say not to do a welfare check because the welfare check is so varied. But that's one of the primary things that we look at. If we see a large number of suspicious activity or welfare checks, and we expand our analysis of the area, is it suspicious that the kid walks through the yard 5 times in the evening? That might not be. But if we're having car prowls down the street 5 times on those same evenings, then it might be worthwhile. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to attack each individual location. We're using a precision police model for analysis, which looks at individuals, addresses, and travel ways or paths that they use in doing our analysis of crime. Of course, we're also looking at root cause analysis. When you boil it all down, a runaway is a runaway, but why is he running away? So, but false alarms, are a biggie that's really raised to the top, and the welfare checks.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else on council?
Not a question, but I want to echo, I really appreciate your focus on keeping our community safe and being proactive in the programs that you've implemented to go beyond just enforcing laws, to get at the root causes. And I also just wanted to say congratulations on the homicide conviction to whomever was involved in that. Good job.
Very happy with them.
Are there any comments from the audience?
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Chris Whitsett, a resident of Ellensburg and a member of the administration of the Sheriff's Office here in Kittitas County. As a resident, I'd like to say that I appreciate the careful detail that Chief Wade brings to his position, the kind of analysis that he's doing. It's a great deal of work. He's doing a job that makes me and my family feel safe. As a member of the Sheriff's Office, as inspector in the Sheriff's Office, I want to call out something that's easy to overlook in this kind of internal looking investigation, but has a real outsized impact on public safety. And that's the strength of the coordination and cooperation between law enforcement agencies in our community. And Chief Wade, the leadership that he's brought in this area, has created a network of, I don't want to say relationships because it sounds like it's about feelings, but it is relationships, of course. But it's more than relationships. It's the strength of being practiced at responding to crises together, at having trained together, at knowing each other's operations and systems, and knowing each other's personnel. And because we've built these, because Chief Wade has invested as he has in building these relationships, in laying out the intent, putting in the time and the practice to build that coordinated and that coordination and cooperation, the effectiveness of all our responses to crises and public safety emergencies in our community is much better, and public safety is very well served. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody online? Okay. Let's see back to her. Okay, item 7 is public comment on non-agenda items. I'm reading my script while we're getting our sign-up sheet. Again, each speaker's comments limited to 3 minutes. Total time allowed for this agenda item is 30 minutes unless we, as a majority of the council, extend that time. Speakers not allowed to identify themselves as candidates or take a position on a ballot measure. Comments on non-agenda items only address council on matters which was on the registration form and must be something pertaining to the city council has control. State your name, whether you live in the city of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, or elsewhere. State whether you're representing yourself or others and the topic on which you wish to speak. Speakers caution not to engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the meeting. And please note that City Council will provide no action on non-agenda items when it's first introduced because it's not on the agenda. And we may follow up and address it at a future meeting, or staff may follow up with the speakers as necessary. We'll start with our list, and it's Jennifer Patterson and Rec Center.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pattison. I reside in Kittitas County, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of many community members who believe the city has a responsibility to replace the Ellensburg Recreation Center. The loss of this facility left a large gap in our community, and with the $7.24 million insurance settlement, potential county support of $3 million, and interest from private partners, there's no excuse for inaction. The city claims it cannot afford to rebuild, yet the reality is that it is a responsible, cost-effective plan is possible. We do not need an overpriced field house. What we need is a functional, multi-use recreation center that serves the needs of the Ellensburg residents. An open span building with rubber courts, drop-down dividers that would allow for basketball, volleyball, pickleball, and other recreational activities. I believe this can be done at a cost within your available budget. Additionally, instead of adding outdoor tennis courts at Mountain View Park, we should explore the options of putting these indoors. This could be a potential savings on your later parks plans. It is not the city's responsibility to fund facilities for the school district that failed to provide. The city's responsibility is to replace what was lost. The community is asking for a practical, financially responsible solution. We need leadership that listens to its residents and prioritizes this project. I urge the council to take immediate action, stop paying for unnecessary consultants, put out bids with a clear budget in mind, and commit to rebuilding the recreation center. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, graffiti presentation from the study session.
Hello, William Coleman, resident of Kittitas. My comment tonight is in reference to the study session this evening and graffiti. I grew up in Wapato in the 80s and early 90s, and we were no stranger to graffiti there. Most commonly, it was found in the alleyways. And one of the best solutions that the city came up with to tackle the problem was through the local Boy Scout troop that I was a member of. Boy Scouts need to have community service hours, and painting over graffiti ended up being a great way to do that. Now, I'm not volunteering the Ellensburg troop here. I'm just talking about my personal experience. we found that using the right color helped. Some colors don't cover other colors very well, as we saw with the old KFC building here in town in that yellow going over the black. Some colors are hard to paint over. Red, black, you can't use white. You got to do multiple coats. So we came up with what I believe was a tan or a light brown, and it did a real good job covering it in a single go. And oftentimes painting over graffiti in a color that doesn't match what the wall originally was really doesn't make anything look better. So part of the service projects, we're going around and painting the entire wall of a garage facing the alley or a fence along the alley. And with low income folks that were physically capable, we would leave them, a half gallon of that color. We would, to people that had the money and the time and the ability to do it, we'd give them the paint code for the local hardware store to get that color. And it became really easy to cover over these graffiti marks. Something to think about. There's more to it than that, but that's about all I remember right now from 35 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody online? Okay, we'll move on to item 9, which is 9A, page 121 in the agenda packet. This is ordinance 4957, potential first reading, and this is regulations of banners, sidewalk flags, and decorations in the city's right of way. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and city council members. Terry Weiner, Assistant City Manager, City Attorney. So the background of this ordinance goes back to 2022, and I realize not all of you were members at that time, but we had a request from a Rotary organization to basically use some of the street light poles for a fundraiser for the organization. And we don't currently have any ordinance or regulations for using essentially the city's rights of way for hanging banners or flags or anything like that, with the exception of the banner that goes across University Way, which you as council members approve when the request comes in, and those are hung by CWU staff, and the application process goes through there. So council requested that staff explore coming up with regulations. And at that point, we were on our way. And then a few months later, there was a new U.S. Supreme Court case that came out that it dictated how such regulations would apply to flags on city flagpoles, but had a larger implication for the regulations we were looking at. So with that, that case came out in late May, and the analysis done by a lot of organizations continued through the summer as to what the impact of that Supreme Court case, which was Shurtleff versus the city of Boston. You may remember we had a study session on that issue and sort of the regulations later that year. And the focus of the case and my presentation of that study session was on maintaining that if we had regulations, that it would be seen as government speech that we were regulating. You may recall that there are different levels of public forum. We have our parks, which are open public forum for people to use for free speech, same as our sidewalks. But there's also limited public forums that we sometimes create as a government, local government agency. But then there's also government speech, which would be things like the example I gave you at the time was the Supreme Court Texas license plate case, which said that Texas had the right to regulate the content of license plate designs because it was they were in essence creating an application review program so that Texas could decide what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate for license plate designs without running afoul of the First Amendment. So with that background, we held a follow-up study session with council in later 2023, and then a draft ordinance was then presented to council in June of 2024. And I'll get to the ordinance in a minute, but that draft ordinance is substantially what you're seeing tonight. There have been some changes, but all of the components that you saw at that time were there. Part of what we did at council's direction was we We also reviewed some of the drafts with a stakeholder group that consisted of course, city staff, a council member, member of the rodeo board, representatives from the local Boy Scout troop, EDA, some other organizations, a member of the DEI Commission. And so we took that input and also revised the ordinance where it was appropriate to address some of the concerns. An example would be the rodeo board representative was concerned about the time limits on when applications could be filed and how long that period where they could have their rodeo flags up during the time of the rodeo events. So there were suggestions like that we took and incorporated into another draft that was then circulated afterwards. And then, we've been working internally as staff on a final version, which you have before you tonight. And that took some time to get staff input, primarily because this is going to be administered by the Public Works Department and the Public Works Director. But it required some input from that department and some of our other internal stakeholders as well. So turning to the ordinance itself, this would be a new chapter in the Ellensburg City Code, Chapter 3.44. I want to make it clear for everybody at the outset, we're not changing anything in the sign code, which is a different chapter of the city code. It's Chapter 3.12 with two exceptions, which I'll go into in a little bit. But this is not a sign code ordinance. This is a government speech regulating content in the city right-of-way ordinance. So to the extent that people are concerned about commercial advertising or any kind of advertising, we are not changing the existing sign code, which was just amended a couple of years ago. There is a definitional section in the start of the ordinance. And that is on pages 127 and 128 through in your packet. I'm not going to go through all the definitions. There is then a section in section 3.44.040 for the locations of these items. And basically, we've divided them into 2 or 3 categories. Street banners are exactly what we have existing, the banners that go across University Avenue. Those are the basic definition of a street banner. It crosses the right-of-way completely. We do have a couple of poles across 4th Avenue near Pearl Street, near Unity Park. You might recall those were used for the 100th anniversary of the rodeo banner, but quite a few years ago, I think it was used for Dachshunds on Parade, maybe. That's remembering. Thank you. Yeah. But other than that, they really haven't been, that location hasn't been used much. Those are the street banners. Then we also have what are defined as vertical banners. And I say vertical, but the definition notes that they hang generally vertical. We're talking about the perfect example is the rodeo flags. Those go in existing brackets on city light poles for the most part. And they appear to be a flag of design or some sort of, basically rectangular type of material. And those would be the ones that would be hung on city light poles and those types of structures. And then we have decorations, which there's a definition in there. We don't really get too many inquiries about decorations. The snowflakes are decorations, but because those are installed upon contract with the EDA, between the EDA and the city, there's a section that exempts installations by the city or on behalf of the city, so they really don't fall. Although they are decorations, they're also exempt. So those are the major categories that we have locations for. And you can see up on the screen, we've come up with, these are locations of, we went out and we had staff actually go out and see there's also, I'm going to mention the sidewalk flags. So the sidewalk flags are defined as the ones that the local Boy Scout troop has been working with for several years, many years, where they approach local businesses and arrange for a sidewalk hole to be sort of drilled into the sidewalk there. And they use those to install the the American flag during the holidays, the federal holidays between, I believe, May and November. Is that right, Jeremy? Yeah. Between May and November, they go up on one day and they're taken down pretty soon thereafter. So that's the other category, and that's the only use of those sidewalk flags. So this map shows locations for the sidewalk flags, for the banners, street banners, and then for the two locations for the street banners as well. Once we have this ordinance in place, if council chooses to adopt it, we will make this, right now, this map is in design stage, so to speak, and we'll make it available for the general public so they can see what locations are available. There's a key, there's a color key there. And so people will be able to know if they want to use one of the city light poles, where those installations are primarily. Again, the sidewalk flags are available in the code that's been drafted for you, only for use by the local Boy Scout troop for the American flag. There's a permit application and review process, and that limits permit applications to qualified applicants. As you can see on page 122 of your packet, a qualified applicant is an organization that maintains an office or other presence in Ellensburg, that they have that they are basically tax exempt, and that to show that they're a nonprofit of some sort, and that the organization is the primary organizer of a community event or city-sponsored event. The application, there are deadlines for applying for the permit and what the permit contents will be, and there's a provision there that fees can be established by the city. Just a short sort of diversion. Public Works has been looking at implementing a fee structure if Public Works is involved in the installation of, say, the vertical banners. So if they have to go out and install them or install new brackets, they have a schedule of charges. They are adopting those through the Public Works Development Standards. The Public Works Development Standards are adopted. They're initiated by the Public Works Director. They've been presented to the UAC at their last meeting. And if this ordinance gets first reading, they will also be bringing those Public Works Standards forward at the next meeting at the same time. This would go through second reading. Those Public Works Standards are not just the fees. They've done a total rewrite of portions of the Public Works Development Standards Code. So it'll be much more than just fees, but that's how the fees will be set. So people can see what those fees are when they apply for the permit. There will also be a permit application fee that's not established at this time. Internally, we've been talking about what that amount should be to cover just staff time for processing the permit applications. We don't really think it's probably prudent to try and recover actual staff time because it would be more than most organizations could or might want to pay. So staff is suggesting a starting point of $50, and we'd welcome your input on whether you want that to go up or down, but that's sort of, we don't need to necessarily decide that tonight because again, that will come forward with the Public Works Development Standards fees. The application process, the application that's filed then gets reviewed by the Public Works Director, who can review that and can also, if there's an issue of some sort, whether a question about whether this qualifies as a community event or something along those lines, they can refer it to the City Council for review and decision. Again, keeping in mind that we're maintaining this as a government speech area, the purpose of allowing the permits would be for community and city-sponsored events. That's defined in section 3.44.070. That's on page 131 of your packet. There are certain things that will not qualify as community events that are excluded from that definition. That includes anything having to do with commercial product sales, services, or events. Advertising for or against any particular political party, candidate, or ballot measures. These are sort of things that are consistent with some of our other city regulations. And then religious events or services that promote or promulgate any particular religious belief, creed, tenet, or denomination. Non-denominational community events are not impacted by that restriction. So an example would be in another city I lived in, the Greek church had a Greek festival, which was open to everybody to come and participate at the church grounds. And that was advertised as part of the city's program, and they were able to close off streets for that. So it's that kind of event that's open to everybody in the community, even though it may have a religious connotation to it. It's non-denominational in the event itself. There are, I already mentioned permit fees. We've also added a section for licensed installers. So our city light poles, they can have installations in areas that don't currently have installations of the brackets. If someone wanted to have their own licensed installer do that instead of our city crews, they could make arrangements for that. We've sort of cross-referenced that requirement. It's the same requirement for installing signs in the right-of-way, commercial signs. So we've adopted by cross-reference the same standards, which includes they have to have a business license, they have to have insurance, they have to provide a hold harmless agreement in the city's behalf. So that is also part of the regulations. There's a provision for official flags on city property. The official flags recognized under state law are the flags of the United States, the state flag, and the MIA POW flag. You see those all three flying here at City Hall daily. And those are the only official flags that are recognized under state and federal law, and that we fly here and at other city locations. There is a commemorative flag section. The definition for the commemorative flags that's in the ordinance at page 133. That again is government speech. It's for flags that would be flown on city flagpoles, and it would be only authorized by council action. The process for this would be that either a council member or upon vote of any city board, commission, or committee to request a commemorative flag be flown, it would then be brought forward to council for a full discussion at a council meeting, and then council would decide whether or not that commemorative flag should be flown. And you can see there's also flags that would not be allowed to be flown. It's sort of it's similar in tenor and tone to what's not allowed for community events. So it includes any flag that is of a particular religious movement or creed, to avoid the appearance of the city government endorsing any particular religious movement or religion, flags of any political party or candidate, and then flags advocating any particular outcome in an election. The council would also decide how long the commemorative flag would be flown based on whatever criteria it wishes to use, whether it's the normal, if it's to recognize a certain event, it could be for the length of the event. This is where I want to sort of backtrack to the Shurtleff case. Just a little refresher that the reason this came up was Boston had a flagpole where anybody could apply to fly any flag they wish. And Boston literally would hoist it up. They might raise it for 15 minutes. They put the next flag up. So this was something that went on daily. Sometimes it lasted longer, but they didn't review any of those applications. They just required someone to put it in so they would know what flags they were supposed to fly. They then got a flag from a Christian organization and denied that application. That eventually went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, you can claim that that's a government speech space on your flagpole, but unless you actually regulate it as such, you can't deny one group when you've allowed every other group without reviewing or having any kind of process to guide you on whether you want that flag flown as a government speech of the city. So that's what this is also intended to address, is the Shurtleff case. There are some sign code cleanups. So you'll see at page page 135 of your ordinance, and I will apologize because there was the sign code, section 3.12.340. After I was drafting this current ordinance, that sign code got updated a little bit. And unfortunately, when this went out for publication last Thursday, that updated version wasn't included. There's no substantive change to the impact on this ordinance, but I did want to recognize that the portions that are being stricken from the sign code, they had to do with the banners that go across University Way. And the fact that they are at this time regulated under the sign code. We're pulling those out of the sign code, putting them in the ordinance. And so we had to strike those two subsections in the sign code so that we don't have it appearing in two places. I should also mention we're simplifying the banner request process. As you know, those banner requests come to you as council to approve. It's really an administrative function. And so those will now come through Public Works for recommendation and then to be approved or disapproved by the city manager. Those can also come again to city council if there is an issue, but we will move that to an administrative function. Part of what we're running into is some groups were not able to get their applications in time for the next city council meeting. And so a couple of times we had to deny those, and a couple of times we were scrambling to get those to you at the last minute. So it just seemed to make more sense to make that an administrative process like the rest of the code basically is. Like all of our ordinances and regulations, we do have a violations and penalties section for people that I guess would attempt to hang something without city permit. Of course, we haven't had that, I don't think, happen yet, and I don't anticipate that being an issue, but it always helps to have an enforcement provision just in case, because you never know what will happen. I think I've covered very quickly things that are in the ordinance, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Council.
Thank you, Terry. I do appreciate the explanation. For the sake of the folks that are here, that I assume are here to comment on this or at least hear about it, I want to go through an example, if you don't mind, just entertain me to make sure that I'm thinking about this correctly. Girl Scouts of America wants to hold a national conference here in Ellensburg. They want to do full regalia as far as their advertisement for it. They want to put banners across University Way. They want to put up as many flags as they can with Girl Scout branding. Sorry, Boy Scouts, just like an example here for a second. So under the policy that's written, the red dots representing the sidewalk flags that are typically handled by Boy Scouts would still be only American flags.
Correct.
Government building flagpoles would still be American flags, or are they subject to the council approving a Girl Scout flag on that?
That's correct.
Which one?
2 for 2. No, they could have, if a council member want to bring that forward as a commemorative flag for their event, and they had maybe a Girl Scouts of America flag, that's a potential.
Okay.
So
all
can
right.
I ask, those aren't, I don't see those dots.
No, we don't have all the city flagpoles.
So city facilities, but isn't there also one on 4th and?
Yes, there's one at 4th and Ruby as well.
Let's let.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just.
So that goes to, you kind of addressed it. One, if we could have the map that includes the city flag pole location, because I think that's.
I think that,
Okay, so
I'm sorry, I can't see it far.
yeah, this map was prepared for the public application. So the public can't make an application for the city. It has to be a council member or come through a board or commission to add a commemorative flag for a period of time at a city location. So those really aren't available to the public for, it's really a council driven or and a council decision.
Okay. All right. And then under that same example scenario, so sidewalk flags are still American flags. Street flags are the flags that are on the poles that are between the brackets, the little vertical ones, right?
I call them vertical banners. But
vertical banners. So those could be subject to Girl Scout banners if approved by council or part of the permit process.
Part of the permit process.
Part of the permit process. Okay. And then the street banner, same thing, part of the permit process.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So the only thing that is subject to the council approving is commemorative flags, so like Girl Scout having on flagpoles on government buildings.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Thank you for entertaining my example. Just wanted to make sure.
A lot of pop quizzes.
And appeals.
Sorry?
And if the staff brings it to us because
Yes.
they don't want to decide.
Yes, if for a vertical banner or a street banner, if there was some issue, but the normal process will not come to council.
Any further questions of staff?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I know this is a ton of work. My question, just for clarity, really, is that when it comes to section .1110, the commemorative flags, and then under B, we've got the flags of a religious movement, political party, and election. It's tell me if I'm correct, it's city council who would say whether something is or isn't political. Is that correct?
Well, it's flag of a political party.
Yeah.
Was the way it's worded. So.
But I mean, two different people on different sides of the aisle could look at a single flag and say it's representative of one party or the other. I just want to understand if it's city council that would make that determination on whether something does or doesn't represent a political party or movement. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And that is correct, although I would assume there would be some staff input on that issue as there normally is. But it's ultimately council's decision.
Okay.
That's a question. You covered this before. I just want to make sure I understand it. So under the item D, under the official flags, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I didn't know if council member.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, if you're not finished. please.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Continue.
No, sir. No. Oh, okay. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood. So under official flags, item D, it says only official flags will be flown on flagpoles located at Ellensburg City Hall or at other city facilities. Do I read that correctly that we would not, the way this is written, we would not be able to fly a commemorative flag at City Hall or at?
No, the next section is.
What's the only mean, I guess, is my question.
Only recognized by city.
Yeah, I think it's the only official flags. In other words, flags of anything else would be a commemorative flag.
Oh, anything in the ordinance would be
Yeah.
considered official. Got it. Thank you. Because the reference of the section speaks specifically about the United States flag, the state
Yes.
flag, and the PWMIA flag. That was my confusion. Thank you for clarifying.
I just had a question too on the community events there. So how long is that if it's the flags that are in the, I would say the purple, the street flags? So example would be like rodeo time when they hang they put the
Right.
rodeo flags up. How long, so that's an event, a community event, but how long can those flags stay?
They are on page 132, under permit duration. It says the permits will be valid for a maximum of 2 weeks with the exception.
Oh, I missed that,
of
sorry.
The Ellenberg Rodeo.
Oh,
which
the
has-
exception.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
so that'd be the maximum.
Questions? Okay, we'll take comments from the audience. Nobody online either? No, Mr. Kelleher? 3-minute rule.
Pat Keller, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like to speak to clutter. If you drive through our main high traffic roadways, the signs that are called a street banner, which are the vertical signs that are now in there, central and everything, they faded. They've have wind damage. The mounting brackets have failed and not been replaced, or they're empty. We just have clutter and they don't catch the eye. Okay, the rodeo flags is a routine process. Oh, the rodeo is happening. Or what's happening? There's flags. I don't know what the process is to put up the flags, but the brackets are very simple, and it must be a fairly simple process to mount and dismount those flags. So I would recommend that you make those the brackets. I would recommend that you remove all the other signage that you can around the city, and that people fly their flag, you have a mount and dismount, and that the city charge a per flag mounting and dismounting fee. Because if you look at these brackets, some of them like on University Way, okay, you need traffic control, you need, you're working on a light pole, you're working on, I don't know how those rodeo flags get up and down. I don't know, is the rodeo board, and they're qualified to do it. But I think you need a process and charge the organization $5 per flag or whatever. I want 20 flags. I want 100 flags, whatever you want. And the city mount and dismount them on the poles. And that would, I think, would give you the impact that you want to support a community event. It's going to be waving in the wind. People are going to know, oh, it's Brewfest. Why is that flag up? Oh, it's Dogs on Parade or whatever that is. Whatever the event, it'll generate it. The other thing is that we don't use is the I-90 business loop. Okay? Nobody goes past McDonald's unless they have a flat tire and need to get something done at Les Schwab. What we need to do is get people, oh, there's an I-90 business loop. That must mean I will connect back with I-90 if I venture in to this busy town or this unknown area and follow it through. So if we guide the public through the business loop, we hit this with the high impact rippling flags, I think it would really support the event. The banners, I think you're going to find is too expensive. They're not going to be able to afford the mounting brackets, and they're not going to be able to recover the cost of mounting on that type of system. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sorry for the weird timer. We'll get that fixed. Okay, council.
I'll put a motion on the floor to conduct first reading of ordinance 4957, regulating banners, sidewalk flags, and decorations in the city rights of way.
Second.
We have a motion second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4957, which regulates banners, sidewalk flags, and decorations in the city's rights of way. Is there any discussion? Motion maker first.
I served on the committee that looked at the stakeholder committee, and there was a lot of good discussion that went into developing this ordinance. Public Works had a lot to say about the details of the brackets and the mounting and cost recovery things, and the community, the rodeo board member was very involved, as was the Boy Scouts, in making sure that we can fairly accommodate community interests without stepping into what Boston got into and just having to allow everything because we allow something. So we needed to rein that in, and that was the goal. And I um, on the one hand, am sorry we can't accommodate the Rotary Club and their Valentine Hearts, but on the other hand, I think that would have they wanted control over the message, and then it wasn't government speech. And so it just created, I think it would have created more problems for us if we had allowed them, especially since it was using city property to fundraise. So I just wanted to go back to the beginning. Rotary hasn't been requesting anything. I think they gave up on us because this has taken a while, but that was the impetus for reviewing this. And I think we ended up in a place where we can accommodate US flags for holidays and the Rotary or the rodeo and other events. And I'm going to make a pitch next month to the Environmental Commission to get our Tree City flag flown at we've got 2 apparently. So I'm hoping that's our first commemorative flag is our Tree City, USA, which Ellensburg was the first tree city in Washington state, and we need to celebrate that. So, thank you.
Sarah?
I'm going to go right against it. So, how do we, if there's a part in here that we would like removed or discussed for removal, how do you go about doing that?
Let's make a motion or we've got the motion. If you want to make an amendment, move the amendment and see if it gets a second and support.
All right, I'm making a motion to remove 3.44110 on the commemorative flags. I think that on city property and flag poles, that the only flags that should be flown should be the American flag, the Washington State flag, and the POW flag. And so I think that even we could leave in the official, the banners that we're just talking about, but I think having them flown on city flag poles is a mistake. And I don't think whoever brings that to the city, whether it's a commission or one of the council members, I think that it should be removed from.
So
Is there a second?
yeah,
to that?
you're advocating. Let's.
Oh,
you
okay.
made- So what exact portions are you talking about?
I would like 3.44.110 regarding commemorative flags
The
removed.
entire section.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, now you can finish.
Well, I said it all.
We weren't listening.
Yeah, right. Weren't allowed to speak,
Any
sir.
other discussion on the proposed amendment, page 133, 134 in the agenda package?
So to kind of talk about what Sarah's talking, I like the line of delineation that Sarah's proposing, simply because we as a city council represent the community. And as a city council, this council will change based upon political, religious affiliation, personal beliefs, those kinds of things. Having that ambiguity as far as the council deciding on that particular thing, commemorative flags on government buildings will change depending on the orientation of that city council. Meaning this will be a debacle each time that city council switches over and over and over, and it could be problematic. We have a process that's there to allow permittable commemorative flags within those ones that are hanging off poles, and then for government buildings and for the sidewalk ones designated for government flags. So I would agree with that logic, is that it provides a way to avoid the ambiguity and the constant change that will inevitably occur with every single time that a new council member comes on to council and you're having this up to the subject of votes.
Yeah.
I have a comment on that. One of the whereas statements as part of this proclamation is that whereas is a public display of council support for its proclamations, council desires to fly at city facilities commemorative flags traditionally associated with those celebrations. So would we have to remove that whereas if we
If the motion
Right.
to amend carries, that would be removed. If the motion to amend carries, then we would have to remove that whereas. Yes.
Okay.
So I guess I don't disagree and will probably support this. I guess there are exceptional events that occur, and changing an ordinance with very little notice sometimes is difficult to do. I do not see this as something that comes before council regularly. I do not think a single council member, I don't see this necessarily changing, so I'm not as concerned, but that doesn't mean I don't support the concept. German warships flew the American flag after September 11th. And granted, hopefully we're not dealing with something like that. But that was a pretty powerful statement.
Sure.
And I don't know what's going to happen in the next, few years. So I feel like we're giving away a little bit of flexibility. I don't think it's flexibility that gets exercised, but I'll probably support this.
I'll kind of say one other thing, kind of going back to the example as far as the Girl Scouts. So I didn't get to finish this up, but I'll finish up real quick. So with that Girl Scout example, you would have Girl Scout flags on the light poles that go down the streets, but not on the sidewalk ones. It would not be on the government buildings. But say this event happened in a Unity Park. Unity Park is a place where they'll be able to hang banners behind very broadly of Girl Scouts behind the stage, correct, Terry? Because this is you're just hanging loose a flag or event. So if you've got an event there as a commemorative nature, you should be able to have your flag behind you like you would if you had some sort of musical
I'll
event.
give the lawyer's answer, probably.
Well, again, we're talking public rights of way. We're not talking about parks.
You're
So
correct.
we're talking about the rights of way.
Yeah.
That's what this ordinance deals with.
Yeah.
So I get it and I, at City Hall and the shop and I'm not the pool and the library. But I want somewhere to fly Tree City USA. And so where's that going to be? As an official statement of the city is celebrating something that it has accomplished over the last 40 years as being Tree City USA. So I guess, I guess I also looked to the flag that the Yakima Nation gave us, and I was thinking, November during Native American Heritage Month, we would be flying that flag somewhere. Maybe not at City Hall. So where, I guess, those are official acts.
Sure.
Those are not. I'm not sure how to make that distinction, but that the Native American Heritage flag would be part of a proclamation, which is how it's explained in the ordinance. So I guess I can support the motion with further discussion about where those other kinds of flags might go.
So to that point, and I understand the significance of it because it is important to be able to have to have that recognition. I've seen, and I can't remember the community, they've created essentially a dedicated commemorative flag pole. This is not the one that is for the American flag, the state flag, and a POW flag. This is a commemorative dedicated pole, and this is where the city or that government agency is able to recognize commemorative flags. And so it does not undermine all the state and federal flags that we may have up, but still has the opportunity for having that commemorative flag. And so that might be kind of a middle path.
Are we planning a pole at Unity Park
So we didn't have sufficient funds to put in a pole. It was the cost of about $25,000. So we did put the conduit and the anchoring for that in to, if there's, eventually we can afford a flagpole.
Anybody got a check you guys want to write out there?
So
$5,000.
let's, so we're on the amendment to the proposed first reading of the ordinance, which strikes 344110, page 133 and 134 in the agenda packet. Is there any additional conversation about that amendment?
Yeah, I was, but finish up if you'd like.
Could we do it at the 4th and Ruby? On that pole? That hardly ever flies anything. It's not an official, it's not at a city facility.
That's correct. So it is city owned, essentially. It's in city right of way, but it's not at a city facility. So you are correct. So what the framework for this ordinance does is it provides the framework for a future designation of a specific location or current designation of a specific location.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to vote against this amendment and then offer limiting the commemorative flags to that one flagpole that does not interfere.
What you're going to do in a second after
Yeah.
we finish voting.
But just so
Yes.
folks know what's coming, the options.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just, it's an interesting conversation. I will be a no on this for just a couple reasons. As it's stated in item B, I mean, as it's described, city council chooses to honor or commemorate consistent with the city's missions and priorities. And as near as I know, the city's missions and priorities are defined by the city council, members of which are elected by the community. The bar is high. It takes 4 votes to get anything passed in the city council. So acknowledging that there may be changes, 1, 2 at a time, whatever that is, it's still going to have to rise to a level where the majority of the council that's seated will support that. And I would agree with the mayor's assessment. I don't see that being a regular occurrence. I just don't think that there's that much out there that will create that much appetite for change that frequently. So with that in mind, I would lean on the intent here.
Okay, so go ahead.
Just real quick. I mean, I think we should show reverence for our country, our state, and our POWs who allow us to have all of that. And I think there's a special place for that. And I can see the council stubbing our toes a number of times. You know, so it's not, we're not going to have a number of flags, but we've already identified 2 in a couple of minutes. So more will come with more thought. I agree with the amendment wholeheartedly. I think we should have a special place for those 3 flags, and it should be protected. So I'll be supporting it.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment, and I vote.
Could I ask for clarification on the comment? There's nothing in 110 that speaks to the 3 flags that are flown on city hall and other property, if I'm not
Just
mistaken.
limits it to them.
Limits it to that.
That's what I think the point is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so when I vote on this amendment, scratches 344110, which is on 133 and 134 of our agenda packet. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed?
No.
I got 4-3 in favor. Okay, so we are now considering first reading of the ordinance minus the stricken section. Is there any further discussion on the amended ordinance? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to regulation of banners, sidewalk flags, and decorations in the city's right of way and adding a new chapter entitled 3.44 Banners, Sidewalk Flags, and Decorations in City Rights of Way to Title 3 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Item 9B, ordinance 4958. This would be potential first reading. This would be to amend the 2025-2026 biennial budget, and there will be an opportunity for public comment. This is page 138.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Keith Bassett with the city's finance department. The proposed supplemental budget is a routine budget amendment and principally carries forward unspent 2024 budget into 2025 to allow for project completion of previously council approved projects and programs. Additionally, the ordinance adopts amendments to the budget to reflect changes in operational requirements and adjustments to capital project plans approved through prior council action, along with a couple other modifications as proposed by the city manager. Carry forward items include 2 projects at Kittitas Valley Memorial Pool and Fitness Center, telecom utility grant funded projects, the balance of the HERE grant payments, and several capital projects in the natural gas utility fund, projects for the electric utility, carrying those forward, the pre-funded replacement of IT fund assets budgeted in 2024, but not actually paid for until 2025. Previously approved projects and program changes that have come before this body since adoption of the budget include expenditure authority for the IT department's cyber risk grant from the Washington Military Department and U.S. Department of Homeland Security, designated local matching funds for a couple of transportation system grant awards, and change order for additional services for the design of Bull Road Mountain View intersection enhancements. And finally, there were 3 items inadvertently omitted from the 25-26 budget as adopted that are corrected in this ordinance. Of the proposed additional combined expenditure authority of approximately $9 million for both years of the biennium, approximately $7.7 million of that is carry forward of unspent budget from 2024. Detailed figures for each item by fund are included in table 1, which is page 140 and 141 of your agenda packet. A summary of all items by fund are identified in tables 2 and 3, which are the next 2 pages in the agenda packet. And it's important to note that for each budgeted fund, the proposed amendments maintain the anticipated 2025-2026 ending fund balances within the required fund balance threshold policy. And staff recommends a motion to conduct first reading of ordinance 4958, amending the biennial budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Nothing online, no one in the audience. Council, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to conduct first reading of ordinance 4958, amending the 25-26 biennial budget.
Second.
Motion second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4958, which will amend our 2025-2026 biennial budget. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, amending the 2025-2026 biennial budget for the City of Ellensburg, Washington, as set forth in ordinance number 4950 to adjust appropriations in the city's funds.
Okay, item 9C, page 148. This is resolution 2024-04, which would potentially reject all bids for the Water Street overlay, Main Street to Bender Road project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Derek Mayo, City Engineer. Before you tonight is Resolution 2025-04, rejecting bids for the Water Street Overlay Project. As Council is aware, staff was able to secure a $3 million federal grant for the asphalt grinding and overlay of Water Street from Maine and Manitoba to Water and Bender. Staff completed the bid documents, sent them to WSDOT for review, and received approval to go to bid. So we advertised for bids. Bids were opened on February 13th. Copies of the bids were submitted to WashDOT for their bid award concurrence. After review, WashDOT deemed that we need to rebid the project due to the supplemental bidder qualifications form that we had included in our bid packets. This is a form that the city's asked bidders to confirm that they have completed 3 projects of similar size and scope. And this is a form that we have included in our bid packets for the last 10 to 15 years, many of which have been federally funded projects. WashDOT has a new interpretation of the federal requirements and now consider this to be a pre-qualifying bidders and potentially precluding bidders from submitting a bid. Although staff does not necessarily have the same interpretation as WashDOT on this, WashDOT does hold the purse strings to the funding, and we want to maintain a strong relationship with WashDOT and therefore comply with their requests. So therefore, staff has prepared a resolution before you to reject bids and have scheduled the project to be re-advertised tomorrow, actually. So with that, staff recommends council adopt resolution 2025-04, rejecting all bids for the Water Street Overlay project and directs staff to proceed with the rebid of the project.
Questions of staff? Comments from the audience? Council?
I move approval of resolution number 2025-04, rejecting all bids for bid call 2024-20 Water Street Overlay Project.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve resolution 2025-04, which would reject all bids for bid call 2024-20. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 12A, page 151 in the packet, manager's report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heidi Barron, Sternaway City Manager. Just a few items to note. One, a discussion with council. Last year, you hosted a coffee with council opportunity for folks to meet one-on-one or two-on-one in small groups around the community. Do you want to continue that this year? And do you want to do it every month or a different schedule? And do you have recommendations on specific locations you'd like us to schedule?
I guess I would like to start the conversation. I tried to participate in 6 of them. I think I did 5. Very low attendance at most of them. That doesn't mean they were not worth our time. But I'm wondering if there's a better way to find the right time, the right place, the right forum to encourage additional participation. Otherwise, it kind of feels like we're putting a lot of effort into something where we're talking to largely the same 5 to 10 people.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I would like it to be more.
I think having evening options available too, because most of the time people are working.
Yeah.
At the time frame. So could we have cocktails with council? just no.
No city business on during those discussions.
I'll get a lot of money. Okay, Sarah wants cocktails.
I actually kind of support that because I understand to Rich's point.
It's not a plug for my business either. Just saying.
To Rich's point, as far as the coffee with council that I've also attended, I attend 1 or 2 with Rich, is that it tends to be the same audience and it's during the day and there's a lot of people that are working. And so if the intention here is to be able to have some good conversation with your city representatives, it needs to be at a time that's more palatable for city residents, and that's after hours, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, and yet, I've attended, Public Works holds open houses all the time where 2 people come, when we really want to, in the evening, when we want input on, specific topics. So yes, we should have at least some, if we were going to do this. And I was kind of running through my brain, could we do it topically? We really want your opinion on this topic this month and that topic, but you're free to say anything. And make it more, but you're right. It's a lot of work to organize and advertise, but it just seems like this was a way to really engage with people without the barrier of the microphones and the lecterns, and I really valued that, even if it was just a few people, because there isn't another way without this formal forum to really engage with people except at the grocery store. But, okay.
I agree with Councilmember Lilquist, and appreciate all the comments. There might have been very few there, but it was always meaningful for those who were there.
Absolutely.
To be able to answer questions. We could try maybe an experiment with the night. Have daytime coffee with council some months and other months do nights and see, kind of compare the attendance that we're getting and see if more people will come at night.
What if we did 3 and 3 for the year? 3 of each, 3 coffee with councils, 3.
Every other month.
Alternate.
Yeah, alternate. That way it's not a heavy burden. That way we can really point focus as far as it. And for our staff, they're not having to do as many coordination 12 throughout the year, just doing 6.
Yeah.
So we'll work on scheduling those and we'll work on locations and we'll get your input on those as well. So thank you.
Let's just
And-
connect. I know that the successful part of this is that it, as I've stated, it gives people an opportunity to just openly discuss whatever they would like to talk about. And I think we should retain that. But I wonder, a lot of what we do, and I think of our city newsletter that comes out monthly, and there's a lot of conversation at the board and commission levels, even among board members or commission members, about what's happening. Give us an update, staff, on a project we heard about 3 months ago. I wonder if there might be some value in sort of I wouldn't think you'd want it to be scripted, like limited to a topic, but maybe quarterly, there could be some conversation about things that are actively of interest to the community. Maybe we could do some homework and be prepared to say, hey, we've been talking about, West Ellensburg
Field.
Park, the field house, the new pool.
Whoa.
I committed you already.
No.
What was it, $100 million building on campus?
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
No, I'm just thinking that we expect a lot, and people that are able to participate do have a lot of things to talk about that they're interested in. But it seems like there's still a little bit of a gap in information sharing.
So
So-
I guess I would offer, and this is also in the manager's report, we started our Ellensburg Academy, and the idea of Ellensburg Academy is to provide, sort of civic education opportunities about how, city services and city business. And so we do have one scheduled for March 12th, and that was the idea, to do at least quarterly. And I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks to get a full schedule out for the year. And so maybe we can balance those with Coffee with Council and then do Ellensburg Academies. And we're actually including an interactive opportunity in each of those Ellensburg Academies as well. So just continue with that balanced model.
My observation about the last academy was that I saw a lot of the people at the academy that are at the coffees in the council. So I think we're reaching the same.
Staff outnumbered.
Yeah, and the staff outnumbers them, so, and council members maybe. So it's all, we keep trying, right?
Excellent. Okay, a few more items on the, the Transportation Safety Action Plan, we have an open house March 6th. So if folks want to come and talk about their perception of safety in the community, this actually, this plan sets us up for additional funding to bridge those safety gaps over time. There's an active survey out right now, so please take a little time. And in the packet, there's a QR code that will connect you with that survey. Just an information, we're actually city staff are hosting a coffee with builders and developers, making sure that we can have our eyes on what sort of the future holds from those folks who are building things in our community. So it's more of a listening session and sharing about some of the regulations that are coming specifically through stormwater and housing into the future as well. As I mentioned, Ellensburg Academy, there's also a flyer in your packet. And I believe we settled on a joint city and Board of County Commissioner meeting for May 8th. And we are working on a location for that. It may potentially be at Health Homes. So I think that invitation went out. And then I would draw your attention to that we have this printed at the dais for you. For the last few years, we've been putting together a year in review. And I will just say, The people who serve this community do an amazing amount of work. And if you take a look at all of the things that we accomplished this year, from the public safety, which the chief covered tonight, through our community development, affordable housing advancements, our engineering and the projects that we did this last year. There's really an amazing amount of work that happens in this community to really make a difference. And so from this, we will be creating another mailed newsletter. So we'll condense this and distill it down to a one page that will go out to all of the addresses in the city. And our goal is to get that out hopefully before the end of the month. And so, but it is available online. And if folks have any questions, they are welcome to contact the city manager's office. On just a heads up, we've been working on funding for the library in Hella Holmes HVAC system. We had a gap in our funding. Our staff have been in contact with the folks from the CDBG program. That's a community development block program. It's block grant program. It is a federal program, and it requires an application, requires a public hearing before council. The staff for the program, our staff met with them. They were very excited about this. And so at your next meeting, we do have a public hearing scheduled for that application. So Main Street America is hosting, as Teresa talked about tonight, their transformational community survey. Please, there's a link in the manager's report. Go online, take the survey. They are looking for 3 council members to actually participate in their focus group. I believe it's March 25th, 3 to 4 p.m. And I believe Councilmember Palmer has to back out of his spot. So we have Councilmember Lillquist and Councilmember Beauchamp. Is that correct? Would you be available? And then we need one more. So I need 2 official additional folks. And so if folks know now, or if you want to contact us, the city manager's office, let us know. Okay. And then we did a preview of the next meeting. We actually had a switch. The police department did their update this meeting, and we'll bring back the Reeser Creek Levee project next meeting. Finally, I have, there are 2 letters of support at the dais tonight. And so the first one is for a letter of support for a geothermal grant and for Central Washington University, and it's your support for that. And that had a very quick turnaround. So Mayor Elliott did sign that late last week, and we had to submit that, and that's for your information. And then the second one is for your approval, and it's a request from the Office of the Insurance Commissioner in their support for a state homelessness veterans reintegration program. They have folks that they serve in Kittitas County and have contacted us for a letter of support.
So we got some, just need consensus or a vote.
Move to approve the letter.
Seconded.
Consensus is fine. Anybody
Okay.
Opposed? I already signed it.
Thank you.
Excellent. And that's all for tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmer.
Affordable Housing Commission is tomorrow night. Law and Justice was a recap on some of the grants that we're looking at and trying to plan out the rest of 2025. Updates on KIPCOM as far as our staffing, which was great to hear. And Steer I-90 is later on this month. That's all I have.
Councilmember Goodlow.
I attended a meeting with PTAC to sit in on their regular meeting and listen to conversation about the proposal that has been put forward about with their budget and providing the streets with some maintenance money. And that was a really good meeting, I thought, interesting conversation. So I appreciated the opportunity to listen to that. Attended COG. And I will say that we have a lot on our plate for this next year, and we have, I think, good leadership with that process, keeping us on track and moving forward. Attended the LEFT meeting, and we paid a lot of bills. And I wanted to, and the the Homeless Affordable Housing Committee of the county met today, and we reviewed a couple of grant proposals. One from Hope Source that would result in 8 units being available for occupancy later this year. And then a project from Habitat for Humanity, project similar to the Bidder Road project up in Cle Elum. We've not made any decision on those. We have $250,000 to award. We can split it between the two. We had a really good discussion today among the members of the commission about those two projects, strengths, weaknesses, possibilities. So I anticipate our April meeting will make a decision. Also wanted to let people know that the DEI Commission is accepting grant proposals for our 2025 grant projects. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with all the details, but I know that we are cutting that process will continue through this month and will be stopped in early April. So agencies that are interested in looking for some money from the DEI Commission have a month to get their applications to Nicole.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yeah, my meetings were either canceled or coming up, but did get to do something really fun about a week ago when Heidi and Chief Wade and Councilmember Lilliquist and I, and thanks to Commissioner Waxsmith for putting it together, we went and toured the Kittitas County Jail. Amazing tour. And we saw everything, and it was so great having the chief there. He was able to provide so much just information from the city side in terms of working with the jail and from his experience. It was just highly educational. I would hope that at some point, other members of the council would get that chance. I learned a ton. So that was great. And then last week, I got a chance to sit down with a group of citizens. Many of them are here. We had a great meeting. There's 26 there that were just asking questions about council and what it's like and the experience of. And it was just really great to just spend a couple of hours and answer a lot of questions and end up being super positive. So that's it for me this week.
Councilman Beauchamp.
I actually have everything coming up this week and next, so I have no report.
Councilman Miller.
Into the last month, I attended the chamber hosted a work session on food system resiliency. It's part of a research project that some folks from Iowa State have been working on with them for a while. I hadn't participated in the earlier meetings. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was interesting. Councilmember Lilliquist was there also. Mostly, it's the basic premise was how would Kittitas County effectively withstand significant conditions such as smoke, extended periods of smoke exposure,
Threats to the
agricultural base really is what it was about. And I think most of the people around the table were farmers. So it was actually a very interesting conversation about NERC.
Big commercial and small.
Commercial, small. And I think that it was just there's really no action item for the city. I think the closest thing we got to having something the city has any real involvement was with the loss of agricultural land in the county, and which is a concern to those folks, not just inside the city urban growth area, but the conversion of large span ag lands into 3-acre subdivisions out in the county troubles farmers, unless some farmers want to redevelop their land. But it was an interesting conversation. And I think there's some work, there's going to be some takeaways on coordination. They'll be dealing with that. The chamber's doing a good job in coordinating that. And then as far as PTAC is meeting tomorrow. And my expectation is PTAC will come forward with a recommendation on the sales tax proposal to bring to the council. So it should be available for whenever it comes up to the council, the next meeting. I know there's a deadline to get that decided at the council level before we put it out to the voters later this year. So
Is that something we can advertise so that we could attend remotely and listen in on?
That is, and that I just learned about this special meeting today, so
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
make sure
we're
you
gone.
all.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, basically the way it was presented at the last joint meeting that we had was the council's working on a fairly short time frame in order to be able to make a decision on how to go to the voters for the 0.2 or 1% that is due to expire next year. So this meeting was scheduled by way of a doodle poll of available PTAC members. So unless something doesn't happen, I would expect by the time council meets again, there'll be a recommendation. So for council to consider.
I attended an environmental commission meeting. Central Washington University Sustainability Office has they're working on an air quality grant, and will be out seeking community involvement, asking people's opinion on that. They're planning a recycling day, and I met with waste management and city staff today, and kind of pinning down what it is we want to do at Recycling Day, some educational opportunities, and collecting maybe some of the large white goods, the appliances without Freon, so no refrigerators, unless you take the Freon out. Also discussed the potential for reorganizing that committee and the Utility Advisory Committee. The food systems meeting was, we came away with a recommendation, and David helped me. It was, they had like 22,000 to spend on a study of like a agricultural support center kind of model. I'm not sure that's the right word.
I think that's close. I think they haven't defined it quite yet.
Yeah, so they'll be working on that. The Utility Advisory Committee worked on the public works standards, and the reorganization proposal. Jail tour, I agree, was awesome. I learned so much and came away just, I'm not sure how we got so lucky in Kittitas County to have, such proactive law enforcement working on things, and, from putting counselors and support systems in the jail so that they're not just releasing people without having worked on their problems. So anyway, it just, and they said they treat every inmate as if he or she or is someone's brother or sister, mother or father or whatever, just they're people. And I haven't been in other jails, but I'm pretty sure that's not all that common. Attended a LEF meeting, and the bike month, we're working on bike month, which is May. We've decided we're not going to sponsor rides this time, but we're going to have these month-long competitions, and the technology is going to help us and make one idea is kind of a bingo kind of thing competition. So, but we will be at Unity Park on May 31st, giving away bicycles and helmets and bells, and adding some game kinds of things to that event. That's all.
Okay, I have been in other jails and prisons, and yes,
Yeah.
ours is really good, and I think I've been saying that for like 5 years.
I didn't.
Just saying. What's that?
As a
As a
guest.
visitor.
As a visitor, yeah. Delivering toys for tots for the Marines. Yeah,
Clarify that.
that one scared me. That was Purdy. That was the women's prison. That was scary. All right. I did meet to discuss options on the field house, and just for audience, this is not going to happen in a short period of time. It's going to take a little while, but yes, there are options, and we are going to push towards looking at those alternate options. But this is not by the end of this year type thing. Not going to happen. DEI listening tour at Central Washington University. COG participated in a risk assessment through Department of Emergency Management. And this gets back to our CWU grant and power generation. There's an active effort in Upper Kittitas County. There's an active effort in the West Coast to work more closely with the insurance industry related to wildfire risk and trying to keep communities, and ours is one of those, from being canceled outright by insurance carriers. If you haven't noticed, your insurance rates are probably up close to 40%. And they're likely going to go up again based on what happened in Los Angeles because it's a shared risk pool. And so when one area of the community loses, everybody else pays for it. Where I'm going with this is they want to use the area around Cle Elum as a potential national test bed, and they're going to need a place for the biomass. So none of this works with just government money. So just FYI. Other than that, we will be visiting the Yakima Nation tomorrow at an invitation, and we will report back, and we are adjourned.